Hey everyone, I am the TheChosenOneLegend here, as always joined by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Kai, also known as Fascurreyn.
And welcome back to the BunchaJokahs podcast, where we talk all Nintendo news from the past month, and some other gaming bits as well. And surprisingly, even though we are pretty much approaching what we call, in quotation marks, E3 season, with or without E3, Summer Games Fest, whatever you want it, we're approaching that time. But still, May's actually had a fair few bits to talk about, which kind of surprised me.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. They've been releasing like a good stream of information for various games. You know, they've not been like holding back on everything. It seems like basically every upcoming game for this year that Nintendo's got on offer, they're showing little specks of information for, which is very nice to see.
Yeah, there's been a lot of sort of drip feeding of bits. Like, there's some bits that we're not going to really cover here, like Xenoblade 3 and Splatoon. I've had loads of little details dropping on Twitter. So it's good to see that they're keeping the hype going for these upcoming things, which I'm definitely excited for. But we also have had various bits of bigger news drop and some sort of reveals going on. Plus, we've been playing our own games we want to talk about this month. So we're going to do all of that in the rest of the podcast. There will be timestamps in the description below, as always, if you want to hop about between different sections. But let's just get started with our first segment, Can't Have a Podcast Without News, Baby, where we go over the news highlights from the past month. And starting things off, we've sort of had a sort of a recurring thing throughout the month, which has been they've been dropping trailers for Free Hopes, giving us more details on each of the three houses, specifically with the character designs and showing off a bit of gameplay. And I gotta say, Kai, what house are you thinking of going for? If you, I know you're not sure about getting the game, but if you do, what one's looking the best to you at the moment?
I mean, I've got to stick with my gang. Fear the deer, you know?
True.
Just like the original. I'm always sticking by my gang, but I've got to say, all of them have really good new designs.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of those things where if I were to get it, then I would absolutely want to play every route, maybe even bit by bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely with you in that. I think I'd probably go Golden Deer. They were my go-to house in the original. In fact, they were the only house that I played in the original. I still have yet to see the rest of the houses, but seeing this is making me really want to because their character designs across the board are all really strong. Even the ones that haven't changed so much as Lysithea still look good. But then you've got ones like, Marianne's got long hair now and looks even more depressed in her artwork, which we didn't need, but hopefully she's okay. But across the board, there's been really nice designs. Are there any ones that stick out to you as highlights?
I think Marianne's definitely a highlight there out of all of them. Definitely one I quite like. I do like Dimitri's because one thing is that Dimitri's design in the original is different depending on the route you take for his post-time skip. So it's interesting how they've given him one now that's, very reminiscent of one of his post-time skip designs, less so of the other, but still kind of like a merge.
Yeah.
And also, Mercedes has finally got good post-time skip hair. So that's a
Yes.
big highlight, is that they finally fixed that. But yeah, overall they look nice. I think all of them, apart from the ones we've mentioned, I wouldn't say there's any like huge standouts of, oh my god, this is groundbreaking redesign. But they're all like pretty decent, you know what I mean? They're nice sort of edits of the original designs.
Exactly, yeah. And even beyond just the core designs, we saw a bit of gameplay from each characters, which has been kind of interesting because when we were talking about it before, with so many characters to play as, I sort of suggested maybe it would be like a class system, where sort of you can choose whichever class for a character, but there's like a certain amount of gameplay styles that anyone can have and play the same. But we are definitely seeing some unique aspects at the very least to characters. Like I noticed Ignatz with his bow, like there were some paint effects because of course he's an artist. I noticed Dorothea had like singing stuff around her, and Marianne like summoned the horse. I can't remember its name, but there are a lot of personal touches here. So it seems they're going all in on kind of giving characters unique touches.
Yeah, because to be honest, at first I wasn't sure like how the game's gameplay was going to work. I was thinking surely there's too many characters. They're not going to give them all a unique moveset. And I thought it was going to be based on the classes you chose for them, like free houses.
Yeah.
But now I'm not so sure because we've seen they all do have their own quirks.
Exactly.
that I really don't know. I mean, maybe it's that, like, there's certain movesets that are mostly shared, but they all have their own sort of flair to it.
Yeah, I
Um,
would imagine it's maybe variations on the same thing. Otherwise, that's a lot of unique movesets. So,
yeah, it definitely seems to be that way. Like, all the cavalry fighters have the same thing, except, Lawrence has his rose sort of motif and whatnot and all that sort of thing.
yes,
Um,
Waluigi style.
Honestly, yeah, exactly. But I'm sort of chill with that. Like, the fact that they all have their own little addition to what their moves is, nice enough on its own. I think it's definitely very welcome. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the story pans out. To be honest, it hopefully will be a good one.
Definitely, yeah. You told me before that they sort of showed a few sort of details about how the different routes are going to play out, right?
Yes. So how much do we want to go into that? Because it's not spoiler territory. It's on the official websites and all that. But
That's a good point. Maybe we'll leave it open just in case, but it seems interesting at the very least. Each route's going to have its own focus, which is different than the original, which is the most interesting part. They're not like being carbon copy of the original routes. They're still looking unique, right?
yeah, so they've all got their own different routes outlined. All of them have different, sort of slightly different objectives. Slightly different story circumstances to the original. So they all seem to have different routes. But yeah, there's still a lot left open. But on the whole, we're seeing the kind of direction that each of the routes is going to go in now, who they're going to be up against, where they're going to be fighting.
Yeah.
And it definitely looks very different to the original game's plot.
Yes.
It's a cool little alternate version, like the Warriors games have tended to do.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see where this comes. I mean, only a few weeks till it's out. But, on that topic actually, whilst that's the game that I'm going to be getting in June, I know that for you, Kai, you're going to be getting Mario Strikers.
Yes.
Now, we've sort of seen a few trailers drop throughout the month, and we've also had a demo, which the online starts tomorrow, so we haven't got to play that properly yet, but we have gone through the tutorials, I know both of us have, to sort of get a grip of what the new gameplay is going to be like. But before that, is there anything you want to point out from the trailers? I didn't really keep an eye on those, but was there any standouts for you or something big that was revealed in those?
It's tough to say. I mean, the game still feels like there's definitely been a big shift in the game's direction to Charged. And it's that they are making it a lot more like an online competitive game than a single-player experience, by the looks of it. By so much. I mean, they've removed a lot of the single-player features, which admittedly is a little disappointing, but, hopefully it'll be worth it. There's a lot of different techs in the game now, which I find to be really amusing, and I'm actually quite welcome to it.
They're definitely going for like a competitive potential scene now, aren't they?
100%, yes, they're 100% making it so that if people were to really put in the effort, this game has a really high skill ceiling, while also still being casual fun. So I definitely welcome that. It seems cool just how many different things there are like that. Like there's a lot of timing-based things now that didn't exist before. Shooting at the right time, holding buttons for the right time, and all that. And honestly, I'm really looking forward to seeing, if there's like a meta that evolves and if this does end up having a competitive environment. Because that definitely seems like what they've put all of their efforts into fostering.
Yes, and on that note, of course, like I said, we've been able to play the tutorials of the game, which show you through the core gameplay. And how did you find that, especially compared to the Wii version? Because I never even played that. But for you, it must be different.
Maybe I'm just rusty.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I kind of struggled at first.
Oh, it kicked my
struggled
ass.
with the controls. Yeah. I didn't. I don't know why. I thought the controls would surely be easier on a Pro controller than a Wii remote of all things.
Yeah.
But it genuinely wasn't having the easiest of times, which I didn't expect. So yeah, the game's definitely got a very high skill ceiling. The difficult controls are a thing, but I'm sure you get used to them after a little bit of time. But I'm looking forward to developing my skills. Hopefully, we can get a couple people together for it. I'm looking forward to the new updates that they're going to be introducing to the game.
Yeah, free DLC.
I
they
hope
confirmed.
this succeeds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really hope this succeeds because whilst of course we're not going to get any other Strikers game anytime soon. We've just got this one. the more support I see for this game, the better, because I just love the original.
Yeah, I mean, I found coming to it for the first time that it was definitely intimidating how much there was, but I think that makes sense, and that's going to be something that you ease into over time. The thing that I thought was a weird decision was how brutal they made the CPU in the tutorials, which is like, okay, you're meant to be teaching people the game, but how am I going to get off 10 shoves when my CPU don't even stay in the same place? You know, it was definitely, I don't think they were the best tutorials, but I did think that the core elements seemed interesting, and I think when we actually get to try playing it tomorrow, that's going to be the real deal maker. You know, that's or breaker. That's when you're going to see what it feels like to play against real people, which, like you said, is going to be the real core of this game. Not single player, but online multiplayer is where they're focusing on.
Yeah, I definitely think it'll be interesting. The AI is curious because on your team, like the ally AI is very interesting. We mentioned before how team tackles are nigh on impossible.
Yeah, pretty much.
Start.
They just don't stand still.
Yeah, and then also I've noticed when you're attacking, the AI, like, they all move to basically designated spots by the look of it. You know, the AI, I don't know how much has gone into it or the details, but it seems like the AI are very predictable, maybe, which will be interesting. And they don't defend. They leave no one in defense when you go up and attack, and that winds me up. But again, there's always opportunity for balancing and fixing, and again, they are adding updates to the game. So, you know, I've got hope that even if it's not a huge audience, there is some kind of an environment that people make with a competitive scene. I'm hoping that ends up being the case.
And just go on and add Daisy so people can shut up about it. Go on, just do it, Nintendo.
Do it, yeah.
It's all I see.
She does deserve to be in the game. Like,
100%.
I'm not a huge Daisy fan. You know, I'm not like, oh, Daisy's my favourite character. She's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, she's like the tomboy character. She should be the first character they add to this game.
I mean, her shrieking next level games at the top of her voice was so iconic in the past one.
Next level games! Yeah.
Nintendo! It's iconic. So
yeah. Without a doubt, she'll be the first DLC character. I don't doubt that. And then maybe they'll add in some ones from the old games that they've missed. You know, again, Petey Piranha, Diddy Kong, Bowser Jr. are all missing.
Yeah.
It'd be very nice to see them return, as well as, you know, a couple new ones.
Definitely. We'll keep an eye on that. And of course, next month you'll be having played it, so you'll probably have some thoughts to say. But
I will, yes.
Yeah. Let's move on to our next big piece of news, which happened literally only the day before we're recording this. We got a new Pokemon Scarlet and Violet trailer, which showed off a few things, such as our new professors and rival. It showed off that there's going to be some multiplayer in the overworld, and the Legendaries, and a few new Pokemon on top of that. There was quite a lot of stuff here. What are your general thoughts on this? Does this make you more excited for the game, Kai, or are you still unsure about it?
Well, when the game was first announced and they showed off, you know, all the opening stuff, I could not care less about this for some reason. Like, I don't know if I'm just getting less interested in Pokemon as time goes on or what. But I was like, it's whatever. You know, I've got enough to play this year. There's so many good games that have come out already. I'm probably not going to be bothered.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will say what they have shown off now. I'm liking it. I think it's good.
What they did, Kai, is they won your heart over with Lechonk. That's all it took.
Well, there definitely seems to be a push in the right direction. Possibly a quality, upgrade that we sorely missed in Sword and Shield. We'll see. I think it's one of those things where I'm still apprehensive because Pokemon's not got the best track record at the moment. But it's looking good. You know, they showed off a lot of new things and. There's very much potential. Very much potential here.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same sort of track as you. I've been said before here, I'm not really a Pokemon fan, so I'm probably not going to get this even if it ends up being really good. But it definitely looks like they're being more ambitious. And seeing as how well Legends Arceus was received with all its open world aspects, the fact that they're doubling down a lot for the main series is definitely a good decision. And from the looks of things, the places look really nice. The characters are interesting. The Chad Professor, which
Yeah.
is just
We'll
immediate
talk
thoughts.
about that real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Seda and Turo are the two new professors. It's interesting. There's two professors.
Yeah,
I would say this is a first, but Pokemon Sword and Shield had both Sonia and then the old lady.
right.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's interesting. The very obvious theme with the two games is it's a past and future motif. Very much. You can tell Seda's got like the necklace is, she's very much got like a fossil type design, whereas Turo's got like a futuristic, outfit under his lab coat. But oh my god, actual Chad.
They did it.
It's the Giga Chad meme.
Do you think they
Like,
knew?
actually.
Or you have to wonder, don't you? Or is it just a weird coincidence?
I really don't know because
Yeah.
I think it was. I can't even remember his name now. I really should. The chairman from Sword and Shield. I want to say
Rose?
Leon,
Is it
obviously
Rose?
Not Leon. Rose, yeah.
Yeah.
He has a very similar hairstyle to Turo.
True.
So I don't know if they just grabbed the idea from there and thought, oh, let's just do this, but he's Professor now. But yeah, I like it. I think the meme is funny. I very much welcome it. It seems very chill, and I'm curious to see how much these guys have an impact on the story compared to previous professors.
Yes. But what about the Pokemon that was shown? Any standouts? As if I have to ask, but
Well, I mean, the fan favorite. I mean, they're all basically fan favorites. They're all very likable ones, which I welcome. I think they're very, very fan friendly. We'll call it. Lechonk is yeah.
Yes, just the name is what wins it.
Lechonk is fun. So that Lechonk seems to be the normal type of the region. Your Bidoof, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm pretty chill with it. Maybe it'll evolve into some interesting sort of boar Pokemon. I think it works very well as a Route 1 starter type Pokemon. I think it fits.
It's just gonna evolve into Ganon, that's it.
Oh, it would be amazing if it ended up becoming like the pseudo legendary of the region or something. Oh my god.
Wouldn't be mad.
Imagine. Yeah, but the name Lechonk, I know it's based on like other stuff, but Lechonk just makes me think of Mr. Reddit. Sorry. It's just Lechonk. Oh my god.
It's great. I like Smoliv as well. That's a cute name.
Yeah, Smoliv is also a very popular one. It's of course olive and it's small.
Yeah.
Again, very much suiting the fans. It's something they're going to enjoy. And yeah, I'm chill with it. I think it's the opening bug type of the region, the one that they traditionally have. It's fun. It really reminds me of what's it called? The Turnip Boy game.
Oh yeah, Mr. Turnip Boy avoids his taxes or something like that. Oh.
Yeah, that one. It really reminds me of that, I will say.
I can see that, yeah.
The expression on the face is really fun, just like the worriedness in the eyes and that. Overall, I think it's actually a really good design. Just I really welcome it.
And we've got Pawmi, which seems to be sort of the, I guess maybe the Pikachu clone of the generation, perhaps. Not a clone exactly, but they.
I think based on its description, it's the Pikachu clone.
Yeah. It looks cute.
It has electricity in its cheeks. It discharges when it gets threatened or whatever. Yeah.
And of course we have the box art legendaries. For Scarlet we have Koraidon. I'm probably pronouncing this incorrectly. And for Violet we have Miraidon. Which both seem to be based on sort of lizards. And as you pointed out, the past and future mechanics. Miraidon's got like jet engines on him, which damn.
Yeah, they're pretty interesting. I think they're pretty cool designs. They're definitely an upgrade from Dog with Shield and Dog with Sword for Sword and Shield.
100%, yeah.
It's a little more detailed than that. I think they're cool lizard designs, to be honest. I feel like people have already said they're based off of certain mythology. They absolutely are going to be.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I think they're pretty cool. Overall the designs that they showed off were all really good.
What one are you feeling, Kai? Like, if you had to pick a game to get right now, would you go Scarlet or Violet?
Well, here's the thing: is that for every single Pokemon game in every generation, if I had to choose between the two, I basically always choose the first. Gold, Ruby, Diamond, Black, X, Sun, Sword. Consistently, it's always been the first game.
Yeah.
And I think that will probably end up being the same here. Because as much as I prefer the future motif to the past one, I like red. I like Corodon's design.
Fair enough. I mean, to be fair, I pick Violet, so we'd make the perfect duo for BunchaJokahs here. Not that I'm actually going to get it probably, but works out.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I will yet. It very much depends on some of the other aspects of the game.
That's true. We've still got a lot to learn. There's plenty of time.
Yeah, well, the thing that really interested me is on one of the websites and that, they're talking about how, there's the multiplayer, they said, so 4 people can play with, no sort of story restrictions.
Yeah.
And then they also said, I think they were alluding to the fact that you can basically explore the region in any order you want. They said the order of, you go to different areas is not restricted by your journey.
Right, so they're going full open world in a sense in that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And honestly, I would really like to see it. There's definitely, people say there's scaling issues that you'd have, but no, there wouldn't be. You see Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, they can definitely make it
There's
work.
no scaling. Well, you literally just do it so that it's every. I mean, it's a really easy coding thing you do. For every trainer, you have basically just 8 different versions that are very slightly different in level based on how many gym badges you have. All the wild Pokemon in an area are different based on the amount of gym badges you have. You literally just do that. It's not a hard thing to program. So they could just do that. And I'm very curious to see how that and, the free open world with less story restrictions mixes with the multiplayer.
Yeah.
I don't know how exactly they're going to do it, but it looks cool.
It's almost a shame that we're not getting a proper E3 this year with a treehouse and that, because that's the kind of perfect. This would be perfect for an in-depth gameplay thing, showing off. That's what it really needs, I think.
There's
a lot of stuff that's promising, really cool. But we need to see it in action, unedited, and yeah.
Yeah, that's Pokemon for you.
Yes. So hopefully I think one way or the other we'll get that. Maybe it'll be an extended gameplay video in a few months' time or something. We know it's coming out, I can't remember the date to be honest with you, November 19th or something like that, mid-November, which is about to be expected. But not too long, so we'll definitely keep an eye on it on any further news that they drop on the game.
Definitely.
But let's move on to our final news topic here for today, which also dropped yesterday, and that is some gameplay on Sonic Frontiers, which, I mean, people before were very sort of cautiously excited for it, and I think that's pretty much the same now, because whilst the gameplay that was shown looked at its core fun, the best thing that I've seen described as is it looks a bit like a tech demo or proof of concept, where running around seems fun, but it lacks real substance for a full game. And I'm pretty much, I know that's not an original opinion, but I'm exactly in line with that. It feels like there's a lot more it needs to sell people on it, but how do you think, Kai?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been, big on Sonic games in general, so I don't have too much input. But it's the main argument I've seen being brought up in this is that just because a game is open world, it doesn't mean that it's a good, that's the best way to go and it's number one and it's
yeah.
You've got to make sure that it's a good open world game that where it's engaging. And I feel like that's the main place where Sonic Frontiers looks to be failing right now is, it's fun for 30 seconds to run around a huge open world, I would have had an absolute ball if there was an in-game installed mod where I could make Link run around at 100 times speed.
Yeah.
That would have been so fun to just have. But at the same time, does that constitute and substantiate an entire game of it? We'll have to wait and see based on what else they have, because at the moment it seems like there's a lot of quick running around in Big World, which is nice and scenic, but that's it.
Yeah,
and then there's very small parts of like slowing down and puzzles and stuff.
which don't even look particularly interesting from the very little we've seen. But it's a lot of running from automated section to automated section, and you got some really cool visuals. It's nice to look at, but like you said, for 30 seconds or a few minutes of gameplay fun, for a full game, they really need... I mean, maybe there is more, you know? This is a very short bit, ultimately, that we're seeing, but seeing as this is meant to be releasing this year, I feel like if you compare that to like our first proper look at Breath of the Wild gameplay showing the Great Plateau, which is a small segment of the game, but in that small segment you get instantly so much of the game's core mechanics and how they work and how it's fun to just explore. It's instantly portrayed to you through just watching a few minutes of gameplay. This, it doesn't do that, and I think it needed to do that. And we do know that throughout June we're going to be getting more on this game. They specifically announced that, but I feel like I'm not optimistic, to be honest with you. There's potential that it could be better than it looks now, but given Sonic Team's track record and given the opinions of pretty much everyone I've seen watching this, even people who are more Sonic fans than I am, that everyone's in agreement, I feel like this might not be what people were looking for, probably, but there's time.
You know what it reminds me of, to be honest, is it's kind of like Mario Odyssey, actually, more than a more open world game, where, you know, you've kind of got all these different secrets with all these different puzzles. The only difference is Sonic has separated each of those puzzles into a different part of a huge map, and you're just running from one to the other, rather than Odyssey, you know, where it's all quite put together and you're directly from one to the next.
Yeah.
The only difference is Sonic did it in a big open green field, and you run from puzzle to puzzle instead. And it's just, I mean, I understand how it must be tough.
Yeah.
Like, you know, people, you know, a Sonic game that's open world is something that I'm sure a lot of people have wanted to see happen and would be interested to see how it would work and you know, might have some appeal. But how do you make a good open world game with a character where their shtick is just running fast?
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't have Cappy. He doesn't attack like Link. How do you make an open world game with a fast character non-linear?
Yeah, there's potential for some really fun stuff in making just a huge world where you sort of run through it and can parkour through it at a quick speed. There's definitely a lot of potential there, and we see glimpses of that looking good in this game, but it really, I couldn't tell you how to fully realise that. I couldn't even give you an idea of how you could make that work in a practical sense. That's practical to develop, because of course if you're running through a big open world, that's more things you've got to make. And if you're filling it with stuff to do, that's a lot of space you've got to fill. It's a hard conundrum, but I don't think that they've managed to solve it from what we've seen here. But
yeah, so I will say that, like, it overall, you know, I don't think it's going to end up great, but at the same time, I'm not going to, like, you know, I'm not going to give the Sonic devs a load of crap for this. I'm not gonna just say, like, oh yeah, they did a really terrible job and all that, because to be honest, I think it's a really hard job.
Yeah.
To try and make an open world Sonic game. I like it's a really, really tricky one where I wouldn't even know where to start. So even if this ends up being a flop, I just will say, like, I don't think that this is gonna speak bad of the developers. It's just gonna show that they're not like gods. You know what I mean? They're not like Monolith Soft legends.
I think
they are just normal developers with a really tough job ahead of them.
Yeah, and I definitely don't expect a masterpiece, but there's potential for it to be fun, and I hope at least they managed to portray some of that in the actual game, and it turns out being better than something like Forces, which isn't a high bar, but
yeah.
Let's hope anyway. Maybe I'll get it. If it looks really good, it turns out really good, maybe I'll pick it up, because I've liked some Sonic games in the past. I played it a bit more as a kid. Sonic Heroes is a big game of mine, which obviously this is nothing like, but yeah, I hopefully we'll time will tell. Give us Big the Cat, that's all we need. Show us Froggy and we're set.
Good.
But that is pretty much it for the game announcements over this month that we're going to talk about. Of course, there'll probably be a lot more in the month of June with Summer Games Fest and stuff, so stay tuned for next month's podcast for all of that, hopefully. But before then, we of course now want to talk about the games we've been playing over these months. And Kai, I know you've got a few things to mention, so I'm going to let you start off with whatever game you want to talk about in our next segment of the podcast, Games Time, baby. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I mean, how many do you have to start off, just to check?
I have 2, though they're short games, but
Okay.
yeah.
Alright, I will briefly mention my first one, and it is, Great Ace Attorney Chronicles.
Right.
I'm not going to elaborate here for certain reasons, but and I'm also not going to spoil.
Yeah.
But just, of course, I've been streaming this since, well, I've been streaming Resolve specifically since like February, and I've been, of course, streaming the first game before that last year. And just what a brilliant set of games! Like,
Damn right.
The story was very compelling. The mysteries were amazing. The characters really made it what it was. Music was phenomenal. I've downloaded half the songs on Spotify.
Yes.
Yeah. Overall, it's just we'll discuss more another time. But Great Ace Attorney, Resolve specifically as well, is just a really good story following a really fun set of characters.
Yeah, it just keeps ramping up, and it's great how it resolves everything. It ties things together in such a perfect way.
Oh.
It's really, really great game.
Yeah.
And that's probably a good spot for me to mention that this month I played the original Ace Attorney for the first time. I've got the trilogy on Switch, and I've only played the first game so far. I want to spread out a bit, not to burn myself out. But obviously, I did not think it was as good as Chronicles and Great Ace Attorney, which I always knew was going to happen because it's a 20-year-old game or so at this point. It's much older than the franchise. It's not in a setting that I would find as personally interesting. So it isn't, it wasn't the pinnacle of gaming that I found Chronicles to be and how much I loved it. But what impressed me was that, despite being that old and being the start of the series, it's still bloody good, and I really enjoyed it. Honestly, it was a really solid game, and it's surprising to me, although there's certainly things you're missing, gameplay mechanics that have definitely advanced later in the series, going from the most recent game to the earliest game. But it's also surprising how much to me is still there and still the same in the core foundations, investigation sections where you talk to people and then present evidence, then move from room to room. In the court where you have the witness testimony and you have to press each statement and then break it down and present evidence for the right one. The core mechanics are exactly the same as they are in Chronicles, and they work just as well. So although I'm missing certain aspects, like, dear God, I wish it had a history log. They could have added that in on the trilogy port because it's so helpful in Chronicles. But I still may do without it, and the story as well was very compelling. I grew to really like Phoenix and Maya, and the thing is, it's not Ryunosuke and Susato aren't just carbon copies of them. I like how they're each completely distinct characters and they have their own personalities and traits, so that I wasn't going into it thinking, oh, I just wish I was playing Chronicles. No, I was enjoying these characters for their own rights. Not to Phoenix rights. Not to mention, the bizarre opponents you go against, the weird witnesses you get at the stand, which are as bonkers as I expected them to be.
Yeah.
I mean, the first witness, is a guy who witnessed the crime, and he's called Saw It. I mean, need I say more?
Classic Saw It.
Ace Attorney has its sense of humour, and it is consistent, and I love it. And yeah, I just in general had a really good time. Particularly, I thought the first 2 cases were decent, but after that it really built up, and 3, 4 and 5, which is an extra case that was added to the DS version, I believe, they really go all in with those, and it feels like, I don't want to say like the best of Chronicles, but it feels like up there with how much is happening and how many things you're balancing at once and how it all comes together in a satisfying manner. So if you did play Chronicles for the first time and you're not sure about visiting the rest of the franchise, I would 100% say go for it, because you're going to, maybe not on the exact same level, but you're going to feel the same feelings. The music's great, the characters and personalities are really charming, and it's so satisfying to get that objection. Always is. So
yeah,
really
that's the Ace Attorney series for you. Of course, the great Ace Attorney stuff is very much sort of, some would say, the pinnacle of the series, but like, considering how those old games are like 20 years old at this point, yeah, they hold up pretty well. The mysteries are decent still. They're good.
Definitely
Good stuff.
The only minor complaint is the aesthetics definitely stand out as they look. I think they were mobile originally first, and they definitely look it. In that, like the backgrounds look, the characters look fine, but the backgrounds look quite flat and that. And I almost feel like it would look better in its pixel form than in this like smoothed out, dry sort of look. But you get over it pretty quickly. It still does the job fine, and yeah, had a really good time with it.
Nice.
So Kai, I believe you have another game you've been wanting to talk about for a while now, if I'm correct.
I have got a big one. Oh my god.
Oh boy.
Could spend... This is the kind of game where I could spend 3 hours talking about it. Definitely. Like, it's... the game is Triangle Strategy.
Yes.
You know, I've finally 100%ed it, finished every route, every alternate endings and all the different routes in the game. And I've just got to say, I'm so salty about how this game has been slept on overall. Like, it's sold well, to be fair. I don't think it sold terribly, but I've heard, like, no talk about this game anywhere, and it's so phenomenal. But yeah, you know, Triangle Strategy, of course, there's the prologue demo, which is out, and the demo they had last year. And I would say that those do not accurately reflect just how superb this game really is. You know, of course, the gameplay, it's a tactical RPG, so it's like, you know, your Fire Emblems and whatever. But, you know, there's basically, the way I describe the game is, as much as I hate comparing to Fire Emblem, there's a lot of comparisons that can be made here. It's Fire Emblem, but with a lot more detail and a lot more complexity. In a way which, to be honest, I don't think they do in a bad way, ever. Like, it's always complex in a good way. One of the biggest complaints about the game is the difficulty. I should clarify, there is now there's a hard mode, but then there's also an easy and a very easy mode.
Thank God.
Yeah, because I will say, this game it's tough. Like, again, comparing to Fire Emblem, in Fire Emblem, a lot of the gameplay is just you're moving all of your units forward, and you're just rushing the enemy with your attacks. Sometimes you might use your combat arts or whatever, but like generally it's just you move and attack, move and attack, move and attack. Triangle Strategy does not let you get away with that unless you're playing on very easy. You have got to actually think about what you're doing. The characters are all very specialised, is what I'll say. They all have their own very specific movesets that they can't copy from each other. And they all serve a very specific purpose in battle. So it actually, when you get to the end of the game, where a lot of them have got very unique and very strong moves, it's not just about, like, you know, using all these different quirks on their own. It's about using combos of all these characters' personal quirks and making really, really fun combos. As for the gameplay, I would say this is an absolute perfect sandbox of tactical RPG games. Just the amount of potential there has with everything. You know, you've got your back attacks, your height advantages, all the different moves that everyone has. Just overall, the gameplay is phenomenal. It's so good, and it's tough. It's really tough, but it feels fair at the same time. It feels like one of those things where if you really take a step back and think about things, the game isn't unfair at any point most of the time. Occasionally the game gives reinforcements that screw you over, but apart from that, but yeah, on the most part, like the core gameplay is very fair and it's very tricky, but it really makes you consider what you're doing. One of my favourite characters, which I can point out, is a character called Jens, and he is a blacksmith who actually appears in the what they call the encampment, where you like upgrade and stuff. He's the blacksmith who upgrades your stuff there.
Oh yeah.
And his moveset is very interesting because he can create ladders in combat. So if there's ever a really high point that, you know, you normally can't reach, or, you know, maybe there's enemies there that have got height advantage on you, he can just build a ladder that anyone can use for the rest of combat. And it's like, that's amazing. Another move he has a thing called Springtrap. Probably my favourite move in the entire game, where enemies don't see it. And if they walk on that tile, then the Springtrap launches them in whatever direction you pointed it towards. So you can spring them into other allies' traps, you can spring them back into the opponent, if there's like a particular mage that's in the back, Jens can craft a spring trap right in front of the mage and then spring that into your team so that you can just mob them. There's so much potential with every single stage and every single character, and it's just simply amazing. I know I'm gushing a lot here, but
No, feel free.
it's not one of those, it's not a thing where like I often go, oh, this is my top 5 and top 10 games of all time or whatever. I generally haven't put much thought into that. But when I do consider my favourite games of all time, Triangle Strategy is genuinely up there with things like Xenoblade. Like, of course Xenoblade is always the GOAT, but like, it's up there. I would say that I enjoy this more than things like Smash Bros. And like, the big stuff.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild and all those big games. I enjoyed this just as much as my favourite games of all time. This is up there as one of my favourites of all time. Because of how much fun the gameplay is, how much freedom it gives you to experiment and try new things with all these characters. The ways you can, use their playstyles in conjunction with each other. I know that people found the gameplay hard because, quite frankly, in the original demo, one of those stages are some of the hardest in the game.
They were brutal. Yeah.
But yeah, when you and the first run of the game, I'll admit, I really struggled. I really did. Some of those maps take hours to beat because I just kept resetting and struggling. But you slowly learn what works and what doesn't, and what characters work for you in combinations. And then when you get into New Game Plus, that's when they get their like overpowered moves. For example, Jens, the character I was mentioning, he gets a turret to place down, which is really fun. Characters can create like decoys. They have like auto revives. They can create, thunderstorms and stuff like that. There's a lot in the gameplay, and it's just something that, I really adore. I really think that they've done the best they could with it. And I don't want to compare to Fire Emblem, but oh my god, it just feels so much better. It's so satisfying.
I'm glad to see it was being so well received by not just you, but I know like our friend Abby who's played it and really loves it and that. I've only heard positive things about this game, and when the first demo arrived, it was fun, but there was a lot of things unsure about it and things that needed to be changed and that, and it's clear that they've made the right decisions going into it. And I never tried the second demo. I still should at some point, because I know that made a lot of big improvements on it, but I'm definitely glad to see it's received such a positive reception to it.
It has, yeah. And even on top of that, then you go into the story, and it's not just the gameplay that's amazing, it's the story equally as much makes you think. The whole game makes you think in both the gameplay and the story, and I think that's one of the best charms of it. Is that in both of those aspects, you're putting a lot of thought into what you're doing, because one of the main draws of the game is there are split routes. You make your decisions and you have to stick by them. They're your convictions, so to speak, on the scales. And because I've done all of the decisions now, I've done every route, and I don't think there was very rarely did I find a decision easy to make. A lot of the time, I wouldn't even be playing the game. I would be sitting there staring at the screen for an hour, thinking, well, they've given me all the information. They've given me a lot of information and context on this.
Yeah.
And I've got to weigh up my options. And that's where the game shines through, is that it's based on, you've got your three convictions of morality, liberty, and utility. And what it felt like for every decision is, there isn't a good and a bad choice. There was never, in any route, a good decision and a bad decision for what you should do. It was always, what do you value more? And I'm so amazed by how well they managed to strike a balance with every single decision, and how interesting they made them. And that's not even going into things like, again, there's like 50 or 60 characters in the game total, including all of your units and whatever.
Yeah.
They're all really interesting. Depending on what routes you follow, certain characters will get focus, and some of them you'll never see for the game. There's a certain S-Frosty general called Cycrus, who I'm quite fond of, who appears. But in my first run of the game, I coincidentally took a certain route in the game where I saw him the minimum amount of times. Because all of the optional cutscenes he appeared in, I didn't go those routes because I just didn't realise.
Yeah.
So it's so cool how like certain they set up a lot of plot lines, and only some of them are followed depending on the route you take. And I think that they really weaved a really good story together there. And then of course, you get to things like the endings, because there's multiple endings. I don't think that's really a spoiler to say. And they all just do a really superb job of showing you what would have happened depending on the choice you chose.
Yeah.
And I know Three Houses has done the same thing with the split route, although albeit in a very different way. But I feel like Triangle Strategy just does it in a very strong way. Always makes you think. The lore that they build in the game is great. The motives of each character. There's a lot of really good artwork that they have in the game. Actually, that was a surprise to me. And then the final thing before I stop gushing about how phenomenal this game is the music. The soundtrack's on YouTube. My favourite song from the game by far is a song called Destiny, I believe it is. It's actually, I like to call it the battle theme of Avlora, who you fight against in the demo, the Esfrosty General. And it's got a very cool piano start, it's got a cool guitar in it. And I feel like it really sums up the feeling that the game gives across. But yeah, although of course we're not going to be covering much more on BunchaJokahs with the game, maybe in the far future I might use my own channel to do more with Triangle Strategy, because it's just a game that I feel like deserves so much attention compared to what it's ended up getting. And I'm going to be so salty when the next Fire Emblem game gets announced and everyone on Twitter and everything's like, oh my god, Fire Emblem, oh my god, look at the gameplay, it's the exact same as every other game. It's so boring. And Triangle Strategy's sitting right there and people could just play it, but they're busy playing Fire Emblem, which again, Fire Emblem's great, the music's great in that too, but Triangle Strategy just does what Fire Emblem does and so much more.
I think the thing ultimately is it matches your specific taste very well. Now you are, from what I know of you and the games you play, you love sort of things that involve management and planning ahead and thinking and plotting things out. Whereas for me, like, I really can't give a shit about any of that, which is why I prefer Fire Emblem. Even if I know I haven't played Triangle Strategy, but that's why I know it isn't the kind of game for me. I don't like. I prefer a simple thing of pick this route, this route, or this route, as opposed to making all these decisions. It's not my kind of thing. But for those who are into it, I'm glad that it's been done really well, because there's definitely a market for that. I mean, you are clear evidence of that. And I'm glad to see that for that market is done as well as it has. One question I do have, because when I played the first demo, a lot of my complaints were things that either just weren't to my taste or I think they fixed later. But one thing that I can't imagine being changed, and I wonder what you thought about this in the full game, was I found that a lot of it felt really wordy and drawn out. There was so much dialogue that felt really drawn out, and I didn't think the voice acting was very good. Did you find that at all in the actual game, or do you think in the context of the full game it was all fine and it balanced out well with the gameplay? I just wondered what your thoughts were on that, because that was the only lingering thing I had from the demo.
Okay, so to address those things, so the voice acting, I'll say, is better in the game. Serenoa, I know, had complaints. He in the main
was my main one, yeah.
I won't say he's like, he's not perfect and always super expressive, but he does a good job as a voice actor. He's not as bad as the demo came across with him.
That's good.
So he does good. All the other characters have really good voice acting. In particular, I'll give attention to characters like Frederica. She was very emotive with her voice acting, so I'll give extra credit there. The game is wordy, especially in the first couple chapters. The first two stick out in my mind. There's a lot of lore introduced and a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
And as it goes on, it's still very wordy, because that's the style of the game. Is there's a lot of Old English type stuff going on there. It's very regal and royal, and there's a lot of like old phrases and words you might not recognise. So there is a lot of wordiness. But it does lessen as the game goes on. You start to understand and get used to the vibe of it. So I will say the first couple chapters do indeed have that issue, especially if you're not used to it. But as it goes on, I feel like I've come to appreciate the charm, and it definitely, lessens up relieves
Yeah.
itself as it goes on.
To be fair,
I will
as
say
well.
in
Oh, so go on.
sorry, in terms of like the prep as well, I will say, I actually the prep in terms of the preparation for the game. The weird thing is that there's way less than Fire Emblems. There's no weapon durability system, but like every form of like upgrades and items and everything in the game is so much more streamlined than Fire Emblem. My main issue with Free Houses was that I spent maybe like 20 hours on my Blue Lions run just sorting out equipment every couple chapters because there was so much to deal with. Yeah, with like durability and new weapons and stuff. Triangle strategy, I never spent time in menus because there was no need to. Every character has 2 accessory slots. They all have their own individual upgrades, which are all fairly straightforward. It's actually really nice how, they don't make you spend time in those places. They make you spend time in the actual battles, thinking.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone, I will admit. If you don't want to, it's not a relaxing game in a sense. It's something where you genuinely have to put a lot of focus and thought into it. But for anyone who likes playing those types of games, or just anything that really gives them a challenge, and has a whole world built into it, then Triangle Strategy is definitely the way to go if you want something more than Fire Emblem. I think that's the way to put it. I'm not going to say like it's superior and so much better, but it's more. You know what I mean?
In depth,
whether that's better or worse. Yeah, whether that's better or worse very much depends on the player.
Yeah. Definitely glad it exists, and hopefully that means there'll be more. Maybe we'll get more in the future in the series because, like I said, reception's been positive at the very least. So.
I struggle to find see a way that they would make a sequel, depending on because of the split endings.
Well, not necessarily a story sequel, even. It could just be a spiritual successor.
A gameplay simple.
Yeah.
I would be down for that. I would be very interested to see what they would bring to the table if they did that. Yeah.
I guess I will quickly...
rant over. Love the game.
I'm now going to spend 20 minutes on my... No, I'm kidding. I've got a very short thing, so no worries.
Okay, cool.
I just want to quickly touch upon one, which is Miles Morales. Spider-Man Miles Morales, which I played this month, which is, of course, the sequel to Spider-Man 2018. Although, really, the thing is, like, it's more of a DLC than something like Torna is, in that it's basically the same. It's the same stuff. And that's not a problem, because Spider-Man was a damn good game, and more of it, with, like, a new character and a new story focusing on slightly different tone, is by no means a bad thing. But, yeah, it's just, if you like Spider-Man, I really like what this does for focusing on Miles and the slight gameplay tweaks that they give him. Because at his core, he controls exactly the same as Peter. But how he changes is that how his gadgets and stuff. Whereas Peter had a reliance on different kinds of spider gadgets and types of webs he could use. Miles doesn't have any of that, but instead he has Venom abilities where he can do like electric charged punches and stuff essentially. As well as a few other small details like being able to camouflage and turn invisible. And what this does is, it doesn't make him like he plays like Peter but better with his new abilities. Rather, it's a different flavour, which I think bodes really well for the next Spider-Man game if you're going to be able to play as both of them, because it means there's no clear winner. They each have their own different gameplay styles, and I think the way they balance that makes Miles Morales its own thing, but also a nice thing to just keep you going to the next one without being too expansive. And it's short, it's sweet, but it does a good time with its runtime. And I mean, let's be real, all Spider-Man stories basically tell the same thing. One of your best friends or close allies turns out to be a villain. I mean, it's Spider-Man. You know what you're going to get. But it's a really good sequel. And there's no pizza time, actually. You know what? I take it back. Terrible game. No one play it. Don't buy it.
Bad game. Bad game.
And that's it for today. So, no, I'm kidding. Play the game. It's good. Definitely check out Miles Morales if you enjoyed Spider-Man. It's worthwhile. But that's pretty much all I have to say. Again, it's just more of the same, and I talked about Spider-Man a few months back, so good stuff. That does bring us to the end of this podcast. So thank you all so much for watching and keeping up with us. We have plenty more in the future. We are approaching Summer Games Fest, where we're going to be getting various different announcements from companies. Hopefully a Nintendo Direct, with fingers crossed. I'm sure it will happen. Of course, we'll be doing reaction video to that if it does happen, and maybe some other discussions as well. But other than that, where else can people find you at, Kai?
They can find me at twitch.tv/Fascurreyn. No longer playing Great Ace Attorney. It's done.
It's over.
Finished. For the next while, I'm going to be doing a little bit of everything. You know, a bit of multiplayer, maybe some of a short hike. Of course, we're going to be playing some Mario Strikers, so if you're interested in you know, being part of the gang, then come on over. We'll be making Brug United, Stand Tall.
Damn right.
You know, just a little bit of everything, so feel free to drop by and have some fun.
Absolutely. And of course, we also got to give a special thanks to our graphic designer, Sam, who works hard on all the thumbnails and graphics and channel logo and all that. That's all his work, so thank you once again, Sam. His Twitter is in the description below. But we'll see you guys in the next video. Take care and goodbye.
Goodbye.